Here at Brando Consulting, we get a lot of what I would call implementation improvement projects. This basically means that before coming to us, our customers either did their best to implement their inventory software program on their own, or they hired a local IT guy or QuickBooks Pro advisor or some other form of ambitious local geek of some sort. And the results of the inventory software implementation were not desirable. It weren't what they hoped. So they reached out to us. We've done hundreds of these. They said, help. And we jumped in and said, absolutely, let's help. So what do we here at Brando Consulting do to assure that you have a successful experience with your inventory software program? We focus on two things: setup and usage. If it's not set up right, it doesn't matter how well you use it. The results are not going to be favorable. If it's set up right, but you're using it wrong, then you're also going to have unfavorable results. So by setup, we mean put the customers and vendors and SKUs and prices and costs in, get the bill of materials right, the units of measure conversions, the units of measure, the account mapping, and the configuration default settings. By usage, we mean make best practice decisions and document those decisions, assign roles and responsibilities, train users, and hold them accountable for the way they're supposed to use the software. And we accomplish those two goals by walking you through a 5-step, easy to remember implementation process. This is essentially your outline for your implementation that you can always remember. These are the 5 things that you have to accomplish to assure that your company will now have a successful experience with your inventory software program. The first step is desired overall workflow. Document your desired overall workflow. Second, set up a sandbox. Yes, I know you're already live, so we're going to make a copy of your live file and a copy of your QuickBooks file, connect them together. We're going to create a sandbox. Third, if for larger companies, the larger you are, the more this third step is needed. Document desired overall workflow. Basically, create SOPs for your inventory software usage. And of course, we need adequate training and practice. And then finally, implement these changes that we've decided will improve our experience with the software and ultimately create the favorable results we were looking for. Running lean, no stockouts, and a list of other things you're probably wanting to accomplish. So what does this desired overall workflow document look like? It's basically a paragraph of each step, the sales order entry step. Write a paragraph about how your staff or someone in your staff is going to enter or manage sales orders that are automatically your e-commerce site, whatever it looks like for you. Who's going to decide what to produce, what to manufacture, what to assemble? Work orders are also called production orders, assembly orders. Write a paragraph about who is going to do that and exactly what they're going to do. The best way to accomplish this step is to team up with an implementation specialist. That's what we are, that's what I am, to work with your key person or your internal project manager, your boots on the ground. This key person should be someone who's highly influential and knows the processes and procedures in your company well, know how you already operate. They need to be highly influential because together with the software expert, you're going to make best practice decisions. This needs to be a decision maker and someone who can influence the decisions in your company and help carry these decisions out. So together, the key person and the implementation specialist will decide the best way for your company to use the software and write a paragraph description on each step, each task that you're going to perform in the software program in order to accomplish what you need and want to accomplish. So everything flows over to QuickBooks properly, and you have good, accurate accounting, and you have good, accurate inventory quantity levels. Revisiting each one of these steps will help you think of things that you didn't previously think about. Before you document your desired overall workflow, you may want to just put in summary what each step is going to be. As you see, I have written here in summary. I just made this up, but your company will have its own individual summary of each procedure, each step that needs to have a paragraph description of what happens in that step. Now, I just noticed I don't have receiving written in here or picking written in here. Probably should write that, since one of the biggest proponents to inventory inaccuracy is poor receiving or a poor receiving process or procedure. I believe that if the individual in your company knows what they're supposed to do and it's clearly defined, they will do a good job at carrying that role or responsibility out. It's our job to clearly define what that role or responsibility should be. I honestly think, for the most part, people like roles and responsibilities. Now, while working on creating a paragraph for each one of these steps, each one of these procedures, something might come up. You may have a pressing matter that needs to be resolved right now, right away. So let's pause, let's take a break from documenting these processes and procedures, solve the problem, put out the fire, if you will, and then since we have our project clearly outlined, we can always come back to it and keep going. The beauty of this list is if we get through this whole list, create a paragraph for every step, every process, then we'll flush out all the problems that you may have had or that you may have. This isn't only maintenance, it's preventative maintenance. Also, while we're working on documenting our individual processes and procedures, we'll want to focus on the setup. We'll see that this process or procedure may not work the way we want it to work because the software is not configured or set up the way it's supposed to be set up and configured. To help solve that problem from the get-go, one of the first things we do here at Brando Consulting is perform a file analysis. Look for any red flags of the way your software is set up. We may find some problems right out the gate on the very first meeting you have with us, and we can get working on solving those problems right away. We will provide you with an instructional document that explains how to create a sandbox environment. We can also hold your hand and help you create the sandbox environment together with you, which is essentially a copy of your inventory software, a copy of your accounting software connected to each other. Why? So we can test and make decisions without screwing up the live file. We can put in a test transaction and watch it flow over to QuickBooks and assure that it went over correctly. And since it's not going to your live QuickBooks account, we're okay. Another thing I've commonly come across and I commonly do for companies is connect the live inventory software program to a mock or a dummy QuickBooks account. Many of our customers came to us because they plugged in the inventory software into their accounting system and it just made a mess of their accounts in their accounting system and they shut it off and disconnected it and then called us and said, hey, help us set this up right so it flows over to QuickBooks properly. And this is one way, a fairly common way actually, that we've been able to accomplish this. Since everyone's been burned, this is the best way to regain their confidence that yes, we can in fact send the data over to QuickBooks properly. Now we're on to step 3. Here's step 3. Document desired individual procedures. All the same procedures. These are the procedures that we decided in the overall workflow document. But this time, we're going to create an entire page on one step, not just a paragraph. We're going to copy that paragraph from the desired overall workflow, paste it onto our procedural document to get us started, but then we're going to start to take snippets or snippets, little images of the inventory software screen or the accounting screens to explain where to click. These documents will have someone's name on it, so when you print them out, you'll know who to give them to. They'll know what their role and responsibility is. And finally, each one of these documents can be used as a training tool. I don't know how many times when training begins in the project, I've had to remind myself or the project manager, hey, don't forget to use the training material that we already created. Let's not reinvent the wheel. Now, it's important to know that training and practice should not come as too big of a surprise. On the previous step, when we created the desired individual procedures, or the SOPs for inventory software, we want the approval of the directors, executives, department managers, and we want the weigh-in of those who are actually going to carry out the processes and procedures. So when it's time for training and practice, hopefully it feels more like practice than training. But definitely both are important, training and practice. So once we've made best practice decisions and documented those decisions in step 1, once we have assured that our bills of material are set up properly, our units of measures are fixed, our default configuration settings are switched and checked and unchecked correctly, and everyone has a clear understanding of what they are supposed to do, we can implement changes. We can implement those improvements. Some of these improvements may result or may include installing a custom report. Oftentimes we find that the inventory software program is inadequate and needs to be enhanced some way, or maybe an integration to another software program needs to be created to pick up the slack. That might have been the problem. That might have been the cause of the first implementation's failure or undesirable results. Oftentimes, custom reports and custom integrations solve the problem. And then once the changes are implemented, we hold the users responsible to carry out the changes. We hold the users responsible to carry out the changes. So if we focus on those two things, how it's used, how it's set up, or I put that out of order, maybe how it's set up, how it's used, either way, and we focus on these 5 steps: document desired overall workflow, analyze, set up a sandbox, document desired individual procedures, train and practice and implement changes, you will have a successful experience with your inventory software implementation improvement project and ultimately achieve the goals that you wanted the inventory software to achieve in the first place. I'd love to hear about your implementations. Click below to subscribe, click like if this was helpful, definitely comment below if you'd like to share your experience from your implementation.